am Andrea.
And I'm Brittany.
And this is the Live Laugh License podcast, the very first episode. So today we're going to be giving you all of the basic information about what this podcast is, who we are, and why the podcast exists in the first place. So let's jump in, starting with the what. So tell them what this podcast is all about, Brittany.
So this is Live Laugh License Podcast, a beginner's guide to IP and licensing, IP being intellectual property. Basically, it is a podcast where we interview guests who are stakeholders in the intellectual property art world. And by stakeholders, I mean just people it matters to. So that would be artists who create intellectual property, i.e. artwork, and people who want to buy that artwork, people who want to use that artwork on merchandise like cups and bags and all sorts of things. We want to get a complete understanding of that process and how to make it work for you. If you are an artist, if you are just someone who wants to get into the licensing industry, or if you're just an everyday person who has questions about it, like us, and doesn't know where to start, this is a podcast that we are creating for you. We want you to know we are at the beginning right with you. We have no answers and a lot of questions. So we want you to come on that journey with us.
Yes, it's for you, but it's also for us.
Yeah.
Equally for us. So let's talk about who this podcast is for. And you just kind of touched on it, Brittany, but it's for people that identify with artists that want to make these deals, or with people on the small business side that are wondering, can I license big IPs like shows that are on HBO, like Game of Thrones or Outlander, or even big behemoths like Disney, like the way publishing companies create children's books on behalf of Disney. So how do those deals go about being made, and are they attainable for the everyday average, business person? That's one big question I have. I wish I had an answer for you right now and I could be like, yes, it's possible, but honestly, I don't know how attainable it is. But we're going to be talking and interviewing people that have gone through that process. Maybe it's been their lifelong career, maybe they just got into it, and we're going to be gleaning from their knowledge. So this podcast is really for people that are interested in hearing from people that have that experience. And that won't be us, but we are here to be the intermediaries between you and the people that actually know things.
Yeah, I would say a lot of this podcast is just going to be demystifying words that would otherwise probably turn you off of listening, like licensing, intellectual property. We want to demystify those concepts for you so that when you hear them, you feel confident and you know what you're talking about.
Yes. And at least for me, if this is like an aspiration that you have, I feel like hopefully by the end of this podcast journey, however many episodes or interviews or seasons we do, you and us will have a better idea of how attainable this industry is. Obviously, a lot of industries are a lot harder to break into than others. So, part of, I think, what, at least let me know if you're wondering this too, Brittany,
Mm-hmm.
but part of what I'm wondering is, how accessible is licensing? Like if I start a business, how long does it have to be non-IP related before I can get some IP deals? I don't know. It's all just so interesting to me.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get into some of the questions that we have already about intellectual property and licensing in the next section. But for now, I think we should introduce ourselves to,
Yes. Good
get a
idea.
hold on what stake we have in this situation.
Yes, while we're on the topic of who, so let's talk about who we are. You go first, Brittany.
My name is Brittany. I am a professional graphic designer and visual artist. Hi. And I've been working in the art industry for about 8 years. I mostly work for nonprofits. I do a lot of branding, brand strategy, digital illustration. I've done social media, motion graphics. I've been all over the art as a profession world. And on my end, the reason I got interested in this topic is because as an artist, as someone who creates anything online or in real life, you have to kind of understand how that property works in the business world. You have to understand what rights you have as the creator of that object, that service. And it's, I think, hard for creative people to really feel confident that they know their rights about their art and how it functions in the business world, especially if you get into muddier waters, like you're doing fan art or fan films, and you are using an intellectual property that you didn't necessarily initially create, but had a huge hand in transforming through your art. So I'm interested in a lot of that side. I'm also interested in how an artist, as a small business owner, can license their art to bigger companies, which is a thing that many artists do, but is, from what it seems like, a pretty closed world, and something that I think a lot of artists would be interested in learning about. So.
Yeah, definitely. And then as for me, I am a full-time paid social marketer. Paid social basically just means that I buy advertising placements on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, and just create all of those fun campaigns and strategize them. So I am approaching this whole subject on from a business point of view of like how are people that have started their own businesses and own a store, like a clothing store or a stationery store, for example, how are they able to make licensing deals? Partially because, well, primarily because I'm such a big fan of a lot of movie franchises. So, particularly Disney and Star Wars. I currently have another project that's a whole YouTube channel around Star Wars and the shows that they put out and also Star Wars collectibles. As you can see, I have my own assortment of Star Wars merchandise. So I'm also approaching it from like an interest base of just being really interested in how those deals come to be and how different companies work together. Like, for example, earlier today, I was scrolling through Instagram and came across a Columbia Sportswear post where they're making a deal, an IP licensing deal with Lucasfilm for Star Wars, and they're creating these really cool, like very like actual like sturdy, practical looking, like Columbia sportswear quality, but with an Empire Strikes Back Hoth branding or like design. They're like real jackets that you can ski in. It's not like a costume or anything, but it's designed to look like I know one of them's like Han Solo's jacket from Hoth, and then I think the other one was Luke Skywalker. But to me, the Han Solo one looked a lot more obviously like his original jacket. But anyway, all that to say is I'm just really curious what those conversations are like. And there's people that work at Columbia Sportswear in these very specific IP and licensing departments that are, reaching out or receiving emails from companies like Disney and Lucasfilm about making these kinds of deals. So it's all just so interesting to me.
Yeah, I think there are these huge, huge cinematic media universes that license out so much property and, take in licensed property in return. I'm really interested to learn more about that. And I think it's great that you mentioned that you're coming at it from a professional perspective, but also with a very large fan perspective of just being a fan of IP, because I think we have that in common. We both are coming from like an undercurrent of just loving movies, loving intellectual properties, and really wanting to understand how that works.
Yes, I love it. And I love just like the combo that we make as a team. And for those of you watching, in case you're curious, so Brittany and I know each other from college. We were both in the English school, so I think we both had some kind of double major. Did
Yeah,
you double
well,
major?
I
Okay.
did. Yeah, I was creative writing and studio art, and you were.
And it wasn't creative writing, but it was like an English degree. It was like editing, writing, and media. So that's why we
Yeah.
had some classes overlap, which we met in one of our classes. But then I also got a dual degree in marketing.
Yeah.
So
So we
it was
parallel
our,
worlds.
yeah. So it was our common degree that brought us together. Yeah, but I love that mix that we have of like, the business slash like movie nerd and then the graphic design slash movie nerd. I like that we're approaching it from those two different perspectives.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like a lot of you watching will be kind of coming at it from that same perspective. We all have this professional world that we interact with that has its own rules and regulations around licensing and IP. And I think it's one way to understand it that way, but it's another way to understand it as a personal endeavor and how it affects the things that you love and the things that you come into contact with every day.
Yeah, and it really is like all around us everywhere, like with the Columbia Sportswear ad I was mentioning specifically, and like if you've played any Lego games that are like Lego Star Wars, Lego Harry Potter, that's a licensing
Mm-hmm.
deal because Lego's one company, and then Harry Potter is like an IP owned by Warner Bros. So that's like a convergence of those two brands. So it's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere that you look. But I think sometimes we don't notice it. We're just like, oh, this is like Lego Star Wars. It's just like the one thing. But I don't know, is it just me or like is it easy to like forget that that's two companies that had to like arrange a deal?
It is because it's meant to be invisible. I think it's designed that way. You're not supposed to notice that it was two different companies. You're supposed to think, oh, this is Star Wars. It's supposed to
Hmm.
be just part of the universe. So I think that's by design.
Yeah, it's not like those old like Nickelodeon specials where like Scooby-Doo and like Rugrats came together and they spent all week promoting it and they're like your favorite like cartoon toddlers and your favorite mystery game come together. It's just like very subtle, like you just see an ad for Lego Star Wars and you're like, okay, Lego Star Wars, that sounds fun. I guess I'll play, but you never really think too much about like behind the scenes, like what are those conversations like? I wonder how much like percentage like each company gets and who's paying like licensing rights to whom. And it's is there a third party involved that's like a video game company? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the video game company isn't on either Legos or Star Wars' side. So it's just I don't know. It's interesting. Like, how do these deals happen? I need to know.
Yeah, I feel like there's two big parts of this conversation that we really are interested in. And it's the how does this happen on the business side? So, how do these deals happen? How do like companies that have mutually beneficial interests come together to create these whole new things out of other things? And then there's the other side of it as how does it relate to you as a creator or as a person? How do you benefit from having knowledge about licensing? And if you want to get into the licensing industry, how do you do it? So we've got both worlds sort of converging here on Live Laugh License.
Yes. And while we're on the topic of who, we definitely want to know who you are watching or listening. So if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to comment below and let us know if you're approaching this topic as an artist, as a business owner, as an agent that represents artists, as a licensing attorney, or, maybe something totally entirely different. Definitely let us know in the comments. It's a small channel, so we have all the bandwidth in the world to engage and interact with you guys, and we definitely want to. So let us know who you are. And let's move on to the topic of why, which we mostly covered already. But is there anything left to talk about on as to why we're starting the podcast?
I think that we pretty much did cover it. I think the main why is to make these things accessible because we want them to be accessible to us. We have a lot of questions that we want answered because we're curious and we want to pass along that knowledge to anyone that we can. So that is the core why of this podcast.
Yes. And I also don't think it's a topic that there's a lot of accessible, at least first party information. I think you and I could both probably go online and find a textbook, but who wants to do that? That sounds boring. So I just feel like, especially from an artist and business owner point of view, I feel like there's just not a lot of information out there. So we're really excited to dig for this information on behalf of you guys and also ourselves and get to learn more about this. So, yeah, that's the why. Let's go on to the where. So if you're curious where else you can find us, we are going to be publishing episodes and interviews to YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. So definitely make sure and follow and subscribe if you are on any of those platforms. Did that sound convincing?
I think it did. I would
Oh,
subscribe to
awesome.
us.
I am subscribed to us.
Hey, awesome.
Okay, let's talk about the when. You take it away, Brittany.
So this is kind of our introductory episode. This is where we just wanted to give a very, very quick introduction to who we are, what this podcast is, why we're doing it. And we will be back with our full swing episodes in January 2023. So that is at the end of the holiday, start of the new year. Everyone's making their resolutions. We want to be part of those resolutions for you to learn how to take advantage of your creative property. So that is when we'll be starting full swing. We're not sticking to a strict schedule of posting episodes because we want to be pretty accessible to the people that we are interviewing as well as to you. So we will just be uploading whenever we have something good to show you, but we won't go too long, obviously.
Yes, so it's going to be pretty cash around here, so definitely make sure to introduce yourselves. And yeah, we're just hoping to make a little art licensing community out of this. And your dog says hi. Alrighty, well, I think that's it as to what we wanted to cover today. So make sure to like this video if you're on YouTube and you like this kind of content. If you're an artist, if you're a business owner, if you're interested in going into IP licensing as your career because you love movies just that much that you want to be a part of making these deals happen. Definitely like this video and let us know who you are in the comments. We would love to engage, and make sure to subscribe so that you know when we publish episodes.
Yeah, and if you have ever had a question about creative property, about licensing, about just being an artist working in general, drop those in the comments. We want to be able to address all of the comments in our next video or in upcoming videos. Like Andrea said earlier, we have the bandwidth as a small channel to interact with all of you, and we would love to do that. We want to answer the questions that you have, not just our questions, but all of our questions. So
Yes,
ask us questions
exactly.
anytime.
Yes, exactly. And that's also why we want to know what angle everyone in the community is approaching this from so that we know what kind of interviews to go after and pursue, just so that we could bring you guys the most relevant information.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for our introductory episode. Stay tuned for season 1 coming January 2023. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Brittany.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.